My daughter told me I was dead weight, so I bought the island they were vacationing on. The words that shattered my world didn't come from my son-in-law, the human embodiment of a spreadsheet. They didn't come from his parents, who treated life like a perpetual country club membership. No, the knife, the one that slid between my ribs and twisted with cold, surgical precision, came from my own daughter. "Dad, we need to talk," Chloe had said, her voice a careful, corporate monotone she'd perfected. We were in my garden, the one I'd nurtured for 20 years, where the scent of jasmine and damp earth usually brought me peace. "It's about the Harmony Cay trip." Harmony Cay, the name alone was a mockery. It was a private island resort in the Bahamas, the kind of place featured in magazines, where the water is a color that doesn't seem real. Mark, my son-in-law, had landed a massive deal and was treating the family. The whole asterisk family he'd emphasized months ago. "Mark's parents are so excited," Chloe continued, not meeting my eyes, instead focusing on a perfectly ripe tomato on the vine. "And with his sister flying in from Zurich, it's a real family milestone." "It sounds wonderful, sweetheart," I'd said, my hands covered in soil. "I'm looking forward to it." That's when she delivered the blow. "That's the thing, Dad, we think it's best if you sit this one out." The trowel in my hand felt suddenly heavy. "Sit this one out?" She finally looked at me and her eyes were like polished stones. "You'd be uncomfortable. It's all 5-star, white glove service. You know you hate that kind of fuss. And let's be honest, your pace is different. We all just want to relax without any complications." Complications. I was a complication. The man who taught her to ride a bike, who held her hand through her mother's funeral, who worked double shifts for a decade to pay her college tuition. I was dead weight. I remember the feeling. It wasn't hot rage. It was a cold, profound clarity, as if the entire world had suddenly snapped into hyperfocus. The chirping of the birds, the hum of a distant lawnmower, the faint, earthy scent of the soil, it all became incredibly sharp. I looked at my daughter, at the woman she had become, a stranger in a designer blouse, and I saw not my little girl, but a calculating executive delivering a difficult, but necessary, corporate downsizing. I simply nodded, my voice eerily calm. "I understand. You all deserve a break. Have a wonderful time." The relief on her face was a second, quieter knife. She'd expected a fight, tears, guilt. My placid acceptance was a gift she didn't deserve. She kissed my cheek, a dry, perfunctory gesture, and left me standing there in the dirt, the foundations of my life crumbling into dust. That evening, the silence in my house was deafening. It was the same house where Chloe had taken her first steps, where my late wife, Eleanor, had painted her watercolors, where life had once been vibrant and loud. Now it was a museum of memories, and I was its solitary, forgotten curator. I walked through the rooms, my footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. I stopped at the mantelpiece, picking up a framed photograph of Eleanor. Her smile was gentle, her eyes full of a light that cancer had extinguished far too soon. "What would you think of her now, Ellie?" I whispered to the silent photo. "What would you think of me?" I ended up in my study, a room I hadn't truly used in years. It was a place for storing old tax returns and sentimental clutter. But in the bottom drawer of the heavy oak desk, under a stack of faded blueprints, was a sleek silver laptop. I opened it, the screen illuminating my face in the dark room. The password was Eleanor's birthday. The desktop was sparse. A few folders. One was labeled Elysian Holdings. I double-clicked. While my family saw Arthur Reed, the retired, slightly boring, somewhat embarrassing father-in-law, who wore flannel shirts and talked too much about his tomato plants, Elysian Holdings was a different entity entirely. It was the quiet, meticulous empire I had built in the 20 years since Eleanor's death. The grief had been a nuclear furnace inside me, and I had channeled all of it, the pain, the anger, the loneliness, into work. I'd started with a single rundown motel in Arizona, buying it with every penny of our savings and the life insurance payout. I renovated it myself, learning plumbing, electrical work, and marketing through sheer, obsessive will. That motel became two. Then 5. I never sold. I leveraged, reinvested, and expanded. Elysian Holdings now owned a chain of 17 boutique hotels and resorts across the American, Southwest, and Mexico. I was worth just over $47 million. They never knew. To them, my little projects were a quaint hobby, a way for a lonely old man to pass the time. They pitied me. The truth was, I had built a kingdom, and I had done it alone. My financial advisor, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Isabel, was on speed dial. "Arthur," she said, her voice crisp. "It's late. This better be good." "It is," I said, my voice still carrying that unnerving calm. "I need you to find out who owns Harmony Cay, the private island in the Bahamas." There was a pause. I could hear the clicking of a keyboard. "Harmony Cay? That's ambitious? Why?" "I want to make an offer. A serious one. I need this to happen quickly, Isabel. Very quickly." "Arthur, acquiring a private island isn't like buying a stock. There are sovereignty laws, due diligence, a mountain of paperwork." "I don't care about the mountain," I interrupted. "I care about the summit. Find the owner. Tell them I'm a cash buyer and I can close in 10 days. Price is a secondary concern?" Isabel was silent for a long moment. She knew me. She knew the quiet, determined man beneath the flannel shirt. "This isn't a business decision, is it?" "It's the most important business decision I will ever make," I replied. "Make it happen." I spent the next week playing my part to perfection. I helped Chloe pack, feigning interest in her new resort wear. I listened to Mark drone on about the island's Michelin-starred chef and championship golf course. I even hosted a Bon Voyage barbecue for them, standing at the grill while they sat on my patio, drinking my expensive craft beer and talking about digital detox they were looking forward to. The irony was so thick I could taste it. The day they left, I waved from the driveway, a benign smile on my face. The moment their SUV turned the corner, my smile vanished. My bag was already packed. An hour later, I was in a Blacktown car, headed not to the airport they were using, but to a private airfield. My jet was waiting. The flight to the Bahamas was a blur. I spent it on the phone with Isabel and a team of lawyers she had assembled. The owner of Harmony Cay was a reclusive German industrialist who was liquidating assets after a divorce. He was, as Isabel put it, highly motivated. My offer, which was 20% over the asking price with a 10-day close, was irresistible. I landed in Nassau and was whisked by a private helicopter to the island. Seeing it from the air was breathtaking. It was a jewel, a teardrop of emerald green surrounded by a halo of white sand and turquoise water. The resort itself was a masterpiece of low-impact, high-luxury architecture, with villas nestled into the cliffs and perched over the water. It was paradise. And it was about to be mine. The closing took place in the resort's main pavilion, an open-air structure with stunning ocean views. The industrialist, a tired-looking man named Klaus, signed the papers with a weary hand. "It is a special place," he said, his accent thick. "I hope you take good care of it." "I have very specific plans for it," I assured him, signing the final document with a flourish. Arthur Reed, owner of Harmony Cay, the resort's manager, impeccably dressed man in his 50s named Sebastian, stood by attentively. Once Klaus was gone, I turned to him. "Sebastian, your entire staff is to assemble in the staff lounge in 30 minutes. There will be no exceptions." He nodded, a flicker of apprehension in his eyes. "Of course, Mr. Reed." An hour later, I stood before 60 of the most polished hospitality professionals I had ever seen. Maids, chefs, groundskeepers, boat captains, spa therapists. They looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and fear. New ownership always brought uncertainty. "My name is Arthur Reed," I began, my voice echoing in the quiet room. "As of 1 hour ago, I am the sole owner of Harmony Cay. Let me be clear. I did not buy this resort as an investment. I bought it as a statement." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "In 4 days, a party of 5 will be arriving. The Miller family. They are to be treated with the utmost professionalism. However, there will be some Operational changes, specifically for them. I handed Sebastian a detailed dossier. Their overwater bungalow is to be reassigned to the Garden View suite farthest from the beach, the one next to the generator. All complimentary amenities, the champagne, the spa credits, the private boat tours are revoked. They will be charged a 50% premium on all food, drink, and services. The charges are to be itemized and non-negotiable. Sebastian's face was a mask of professional neutrality, but his eyes were wide. Sir, they have a confirmed booking at the standard rate. The standard rate no longer exists for them, I said, my tone leaving no room for argument. You will also inform them that the resort has implemented a new, strict noise ordinance. Any loud or disruptive behavior will result in immediate eviction, with full forfeiture of their payment. I looked out at the sea of faces. I know this is highly unorthodox. Your jobs are secure. Your salaries, effective immediately, are increased by 20% across the board. Your loyalty for the next week is to me and my instructions. Is that understood? There was a moment of stunned silence, then a chorus of, "Yes, Mr. Reed." "Good, Sebastian, a moment." The manager approached me, the dossier clutched in his hands like a live grenade. "This is personal, isn't it, sir?" he asked quietly. I met his gaze. "The most personal thing in the world." The next few days were a whirlwind. I familiarized myself with every inch of my new kingdom. I learned the staff's names. I reviewed the books. I was not just a vengeful specter. I was a businessman, and I intended for Harmony K to thrive long after this particular drama had concluded. The day of their arrival, I positioned myself in the resort's security office, watching the feed from the main reception area. My heart was a steady, cold drumbeat in my chest. Right on time, I saw them. Mark, in a ridiculous floral shirt, leading the pack. His parents, Barbara and Richard, looking around with an air of smug approval. His sister, Heidi, already taking selfies. And Chloe, my Chloe, she looked happy, carefree, a weight lifted from her shoulders. The weight of me. I watched as they were greeted with chilled towels and glasses of champagne. Sebastian approached them, his smile impeccable. "Welcome to Harmony K, Mr. Miller. We are so pleased to have you." "I bet you are," Mark said, clapping Sebastian on the shoulder in a gesture of false bonhomie. "We've been looking forward to this for months. Lead the way to the Overwater bungalow." Sebastian's smile didn't falter. There has been a slight change, I'm afraid. Due to an urgent maintenance issue, we've had to reassign your accommodation. We've upgraded you to one of our premier garden suites. Mark's smile tightened. "A garden suite?" "We specifically booked the bungalow." "I do apologize, sir. It was unavoidable. The suite is quite lovely, I assure you. And as a gesture of goodwill, we will be providing you with a complimentary fruit basket." I almost smiled. The premier garden suite was a euphemism for the oldest, most dated room on the property, and the fruit basket was the cheapest one we offered. I watched their faces fall as they were led away from the sparkling water and towards the interior of the island. This was only the beginning. I gave them 2 hours to settle in, or rather to fume and complain. Then I made my move. I changed into a simple but impeccably tailored linen shirt and trousers. I looked like the owner. I felt like the owner. I walked to the main restaurant where I knew they had a dinner reservation. I took a seat at the best table on the terrace, one with a panoramic view of the sunset, and ordered a coffee. I positioned myself so that my back was to the entrance. I didn't have to wait long. "I demand to speak to the manager." Mark's voice cut through the tranquil evening air. "This is unacceptable. The room is a dump, the air conditioning sounds like a dying animal, and the garden view is of a cinderblock wall." I took a slow sip of my coffee, the rich, dark flavor a perfect counterpoint to the scene unfolding behind me. "Sir, please lower your voice," I heard Sebastian say, his tone placating. "I will not lower my voice. Do you have any idea how much I paid for this vacation? This is fraud." That's when Chloe spoke, her voice strained. "Mark, maybe we should just—" "No, Chloe. This is principle." I decided it was time. I slowly turned in my chair. The setting sun cast a golden glow, illuminating my face. For a second, there was no recognition. I was just an old man at a table. Then Chloe's eyes focused. Her mouth dropped open. "Dad?" The word was a gasp, a disbelieving whisper that silenced Mark mid-rant. The entire family turned. 5 faces, frozen in a perfect tableau of shock, confusion, and dawning horror. Mark's face went from red to purple. "Reed? What in God's name are you doing here? Did you follow us? This is insane." I remained seated, perfectly calm. "Following you?" "No, Mark, I don't have to follow you anywhere." Chloe found her voice a shrill, panicked tone. "Dad, how did you even get here? This is a private resort. You can't just—" "I can," I interrupted, my voice soft but carrying. "I can do whatever I like." Sebastian chose that moment to step forward, the perfect straight man in our little play. He gave a slight, respectful bow in my direction. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," he said, addressing Mark's parents, who looked utterly bewildered. "May I present Mr. Arthur Reed, the owner of Harmony K?" The silence that followed was more profound than any I had ever experienced. It was the sound of a worldview shattering. Barbara actually took a step backward as if pushed by an invisible force. Richard's jaw was slack. Heidi dropped her phone, the screen cracking on the tile with a sickening crunch. But it was Chloe's face that I watched. The confusion melted away, replaced by a slow, horrifying comprehension. Her eyes darted from Sebastian's respectful posture to my calm demeanor, to the luxury surrounding us that I now commanded. She was putting it all together, the secretive work, the quiet confidence, the money they never knew about. She saw the man she had dismissed as a complication, sitting at the head of the table she could barely afford to eat at. "Owner?" Mark choked out the word. "That's impossible. You mow your own lawn?" I allowed a small, cold smile to touch my lips. "It's good exercise, and it gives me time to think about business." I stood up, finally, and looked at my daughter. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with a storm of emotion, shame, anger, and a terrible, gut-wrenching regret. "You said you needed a break from me." "Chloe," I said, my voice still quiet, but every word a hammer blow. "I hope you enjoy it." I turned and walked away, leaving them in their stunned silence. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I could feel their world collapsing behind me. The rest of their week unfolded with the grim inevitability of a Greek tragedy. From my office, I monitored their misery. Their dinner that first night cost them over $800. Mark's credit card was declined when he tried to buy a round of drinks at the bar the next day. They were moved from their dinner reservation by a more prestigious party, a fiction I invented. The Wi-Fi in their suite was, mysteriously, perpetually under repair. The kayaks they tried to rent were already booked. The list of small, perfectly legal, exquisitely frustrating inconveniences was endless. I saw them around the island, a miserable bickering cluster. The forced cheer was gone, replaced by a tense, simmering resentment. Mark blamed Chloe. Chloe, I could see, was crumbling under the weight of her own actions. She tried to approach me once as I was walking along the beach. "Dad, please," she begged, tears in her eyes. "We can talk about this. This is cruel." I stopped and looked at her, truly looked at her, for the first time since she'd stood in my garden. "Cruel?" I repeated. "Telling your father he's an embarrassment, that his presence would ruin your vacation, that's not cruel? Planning to sell the house he shared with your mother, out from under him, because you see him as a financial burden, that's not cruel?" I had done my homework. Isabel had dug up their financials. They were drowning in debt, and my house was their planned life raft. She flinched as if I'd struck her. "How did you left the paperwork on my kitchen counter, Chloe, after your little planning session. You were so sure of yourselves you didn't even think to hide it." The last of her composure broke. She began to sob, great heaving sobs that shook her entire body. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." I felt a pang in my chest, a remnant of the old, unconditional love. But the cold, clear part of me held firm. Sorry is a word, I said. Actions are a language. You taught me that. I left her there, weeping on the perfect white sand. The day of their departure arrived. I made sure I was at the reception desk, reviewing a shipment manifest when they came to check out. They looked haggard, exhausted, a world away from the vibrant family that had arrived a week prior. Sebastian presented Mark with the bill. His face went ashen as he read the total. This is a mistake, he stammered. This is triple what we budgeted. The rates were adjusted upon the change in ownership, sir, Sebastian said smoothly. You were notified via email prior to your arrival, as per our terms and conditions. I never got any email. Our records show it was delivered. Perhaps it went to your spam folder. It was a masterpiece of bureaucratic warfare. Mark's card was declined again. So was Barbara's, in the end. It was Richard who had to put the entire, staggering amount on his precious platinum card. I watched his hand shake as he signed the receipt. The sound of his pen scratching on the paper was the sound of their financial ruin. They turned to leave, a defeated procession. Chloe was the last to go. She stopped at the door and looked back at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, empty. There were no words left. She just looked at me, and in that look I saw the little girl I'd lost. Then she turned and walked out of my life. I stood there for a long time after they were gone. The victory felt hollow, a Pyrrhic triumph. I had proven my point. I had demonstrated my power. I had humiliated them. But the cost? The cost was my daughter. I spent the next month on the island, immersing myself in the work. I made improvements, connected with the staff, and found a strange, solitary peace in the rhythm of the place. The money from their vacation, I donated to a local marine conservation charity. It felt like a fitting penance. 2 months later, I returned to my house. The garden was overgrown, the house musty. It felt emptier than ever. A week after my return, the doorbell rang. It was Chloe. She stood on my porch, no designer clothes, no makeup. She looked thin and tired, but her eyes were clear. Mark left me, she said, her voice raw. He took what was left of our savings and moved to Singapore. The bank is foreclosing on the house. I said nothing, just held the door open. She walked in and stood in the living room, looking at the photograph of her mother. I lost everything, she whispered. My husband, my home, my dignity. She turned to face me, tears streaming down her face, but this time they were clean, honest tears. I deserved to lose it all. The things I said to you, the way I treated you, Mom would be so ashamed of me. She broke down then, collapsing onto the sofa, sobbing into her hands. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. This time, I didn't turn away. I walked over and sat beside her. I didn't put my arm around her. Not yet, but I stayed. Why, Chloe? I asked, my own voice thick with emotion. Why did you become that person? I don't know, she cried. I got caught up in it. Mark's world. It was all about image, about success. You were real, and real wasn't good enough for that world. I'm so sorry. We sat in silence for a long time, the only sound her ragged breathing slowly calming. What happens now? She finally asked, looking at me with the vulnerable eyes of the child I remembered. Now, I said, you rebuild. Not with my money? With your own 2 hands. You can stay in the guest room. You will get a job. Any job. You will pay me rent. And you will help me replant the garden? It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Forgiveness was a long road, but it was a start. It was a path back from the island of our mutual destruction. She looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw a flicker of my daughter, my real daughter, in her eyes. Okay, Dad, she said. Okay. The revenge was complete. It had been everything I'd wanted, and it had left me with nothing I needed. But from the ashes of that vengeance, something new was stirring. Something fragile. Something that, with time and a lot of hard work, might just grow into a peace I had thought was lost forever. The quiet man in the flannel shirt had won his war, and now he faced the more difficult task, building a peace.